All right, let's jump right in. What if you could look at just one single day in the near future, say October 28th, 2025, and use it to understand the huge strategic shifts happening in a country like Cambodia? Well, that's exactly what we're going to do today. We're going to unpack the day's key events to find the signals that really define what's coming next.
So here's our game plan. We'll start with the single most important message from that one day. Then we'll dig into the details, from a calmer political scene to brand new investment opportunities, the new digital rules that are popping up, and finally, what this all means for you. We're going to end with a clear, actionable plan.
Okay, so first up, let's cut through all the noise. If you boil down everything that happened on October 28th into one single essential takeaway, what would it be? What's the one thing you absolutely have to grasp? And here it is. This is the core idea. Cambodia is essentially trading one set of risks for another. The old school risks, we're talking military standoffs, border disputes, they're starting to fade into the background. And what's taking their place? A whole new set of more complicated opportunities and, frankly, challenges in the economic and digital worlds. Oh, and just a quick technical note before we dive deeper. For any financial figures we discuss, we're just locking in the exchange rate from the end of the day on October 28th. It's a small detail, but it helps keep all the numbers consistent.
So let's start with that first piece of the puzzle, that geopolitical de-risking. The biggest news of the day, by far, was happening right on the Cambodia-Thailand border.
And this just lays it out so clearly. You can see the before and after. We're shifting from a state of high tension with an armed military presence to active dialogue and pulling back heavy weapons. It's a fundamental move from confrontation to conversation. They're even starting talks to release soldiers who are detained. And this isn't just empty promises, you know? These are concrete steps. Weapons are physically being moved. The top leaders are meeting to make sure things actually get done. They're even making moves on the wider foreign policy stage, which signals they're serious about stability. And what does this all mean in the real world? It dramatically lowers the risk of conflict, which is fantastic news for businesses, especially anything related to tourism or logistics across the border. So with the political temperature cooling down, it's really no surprise that we're seeing big money getting ready to make a move. On October 28th, there were two very loud signals that investors are paying close attention. First, in tourism, we saw the groundbreaking for a massive new project on Koh Rong Island. We're talking about a high-end, luxury tourism hub that's also focused on sustainability. This is a very clear bet on the premium travel market. And the second signal came from the world of manufacturing. The Japanese sporting goods giant Mizuno Technics announced they're setting up a new factory. And get this, it's to make baseball equipment. That's a huge step in diversifying Cambodia's manufacturing sector beyond the usual textiles. And when you look at these two developments together, you can really see the strategy taking shape. It's not just about one industry. It's a two-pronged approach. On one hand, go after high-value services in tourism, and on the other, build up more specialized, higher-value manufacturing. It's smart. And, as if to put an exclamation point on this whole idea of value, on the very same day, this happened. The Elephant Valley Project won a major international award for ethical ecotourism. Now, this isn't just a feel-good story, it's a market signal. It shows that being sustainable, that whole ESG angle, is becoming a real powerful way for brands in Cambodia to stand out. Okay, so as you get this more sophisticated economy growing, you need the digital plumbing to support it. And as the digital world grows, well, you'd inevitably need new rules. That brings us to our next big theme, the new digital landscape taking shape. First off, we see a really practical solution to a growing problem. Online financial scams have been a real headache. So on this day, Cambodia and South Korea officially team up and create a joint task force to tackle it. This is a big deal. It's not just a press release. They're actually building the machinery for cross-border enforcement, which is going to have a real impact on how financial firms have to monitor transactions. The second big story in the digital space is in a totally different field, digital health. You know, remote doctor visits, managing patient data online, that whole world. It has been growing incredibly fast, but kind of like the Wild West, with very few regulations. And this brings us to the million-dollar question, one that the European Chamber of Commerce was asking on this very day. As these platforms get more popular, who is on the hook if something goes wrong? What if there's a data breach or you get a wrong diagnosis from an app? Right now, the law is pretty much silent. So their recommendation is basically a huge call for the government to step in and create some clarity. For any business even remotely connected to the space, we're talking healthcare, insurance, even payment platforms, this is a flashing yellow light. It's a clear signal that a new compliance checklist is coming down the pike, and the time to prepare is now. All right, let's bring it all home in our final section. We've got all these different threads. How do we weave them together into a practical strategy that you can actually use? And here's where the rubber meets the road. Every single piece of news we talked about has a home inside a company. That new anti-fraud task force, that's a direct signal to your anti-money laundering and KYC teams to update their rules. The big investments from Mizuno and Korong, your corporate sales team should be all over that, exploring project finance opportunities. The digital health debate, that's for compliance to start drafting new data security policies. Even that ecotourism award has a direct use for your ESG and branding teams.
So here's our shot at putting some numbers on all this. Now, these are obviously just probabilities, but they're based on the signals from the day. We think there's a really high chance, about 70%, of increased regulatory pressure on financial companies because of that new task force, and a pretty good shot at a real tourism recovery. This is how you start to turn the daily news into a real forecasting tool.
So we'll leave you with this final thought. The whole story of risk and opportunity in Cambodia is fundamentally changing. It's shifting away from soldiers on the border and toward data on a server. The big conversations are now about compliance, digital frameworks, and high-value sustainable projects. So the real question is, as the nature of risk itself shifts from borders to bytes, is your strategy ready for that new reality?